moving on to more discussion about pipelines, we're next going to hear from Michelle Dietrich, the chair of the Democratic National Committee Environment and Climate Crisis Council. She has been a community organizer for years, and she is leading on environmental justice in the Democratic Party. She is going to be sharing about the Line 5 pipeline and this important struggle from her own perspective as a frontline organizer. Michelle.
First, heartfelt thanks to Zero Hour and to you, Zanagi, for transformative organizing and leadership, and to all my fellow wonderful speakers at this meeting, and to everyone who's listening. You all inspire me every single day to keep going, because I have been at this a long time. I live in Michigan on Anishinaabeg land, in a rural area where you still see vestiges of the oil drilling and pumping equipment that's here from the 1930s. It's a county where we have passionately fought installation of 2 new major fossil fuel pipelines over just the last decade. And I sometimes think unsuccessfully, except that every one of these battles is a success because we're raising awareness, and it's helped to get us to the point we are at now, where we could pass fossil fuel subsidy ending legislation, which is just so amazing. So I'm going to say next slide when you go to the next slide. So go ahead and next slide. We fought so hard against these pipelines in Michigan, in part because in 2010, next slide, we got a wake-up call about the thousands of miles of pipelines that crisscross Michigan, going under our lakes, crossing our waterways, and slicing straight through our neighborhoods. We have no required setbacks for pipelines in Michigan. Enbridge spilled oil in the Kalamazoo River from its pipeline after violating the law and claiming their faulty 6B pipeline was safe. Next slide. Well, safe it was absolutely not. The Kalamazoo pipeline rupture caused the worst inland waterway oil spill in US history. The spill dumped around 1 million gallons of oil into the river. That is a lot. The river ran black for days. Next slide. It took 6 years, but Enbridge finally paid $177 billion in fines and cleanup. Took a decade for the cleanup, but as always, there are unpaid costs. The Kalamazoo River will never be fully clean. 5% of the oil remains and is considered unrecoverable. It's just there at the bottom. And no amount can pay for or bring back the dead birds and the turtles, or can take away the heartache people still feel today from the uprooting of family from 150 no longer habitable homes, or from their lost businesses. One person said, "They ruined my life, but this company gets to go on with theirs." This shows Enbridge can't be trusted, and neither can the operators of the many other Michigan pipelines and fossil fuel infrastructures, or the others around the country. As my fellow pipeline warriors in the No to Nexus pipeline and the Over with Rover organizations can attest. Let's go to the next slide and turn to the current battle, Enbridge Line 5. Line 5 is damaged, dangerous, and old. Built nearly 70 years ago, it's partly on the floor of the Great Lakes, as you can see, and it was built to operate safely for just 50 years. It is a ticking time bomb. It's well past its lifespan and is one anchor strike away from causing a monumental environmental disaster. Next slide. Every day that oil flows through the pipeline is another day we risk incredible environmental and economic devastation for the entire state and some of our neighboring states and Canada. Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer's plan to shut down the Line 5 pipeline is great leadership. It's the legal thing to do, it's the right thing to do. Her plan protects the health and safety of Michiganders while ensuring energy needs are met. As of May 10th, the Bay Mills Indian community banished Enbridge from its lands. And as of May 13th, Governor Whitmer's shutdown order is in effect, but the pipeline stays open. The oil keeps flowing in violation. And right now, Enbridge is trespassing on public trust Great Lakes bottomlands. Next pipeline. Next slide. The pipeline passes along the floor of the Great Lakes at the point where Lake Huron and Lake Michigan meet, a place of incredible turbulence and an amount of water flow that is greater than that of Niagara Falls. And a study from the University of Michigan shows where the oil would go, a vast area covering so much of Lake Huron and Lake Michigan. The cost of a break could cost $6 billion plus just in direct cleanup costs. Enbridge, get this, their subsidiary says they will set aside 1.8 billion of the 6 billion. But the state of Michigan has studied it and they know that the subsidiary doesn't have that much money. Meanwhile, the Enbridge parent company, which does, has refused to sign a pledge saying they'll cover the costs of the cleanup, let alone the extra costs to human health and the economy. Why are we subsidizing companies that act like this? Next and last slide. I'm so grateful for the crucial leadership fighting this terrible pipeline by the indigenous peoples and tribes, by the activist organization Oil and Water Don't Mix. You see a rally that was held just last week. There were several across the state. We've got another one coming up on August 15th in Lansing. We'd love to have you join us virtually or in person, because that's where hope lies, in all of you and in us. And we know that what's happening in Michigan is not an isolated incident, which is why this coming together of this coalition and the work that Jane Clubb is doing is so crucial. President Biden has called for the elimination of tax preferences and subsidies. We've got great legislation. Congressman Khanna is right. It needs to be incorporated in the infrastructure bills. We can't truly build back better until we end these subsidies to polluters, because the climate crisis is here. You know that. It's now. It's a burning and it's a destruction. And now is not the time to take timid or half measures. So we're starting with ending these subsidies. Thanks so much for being here.